So I hope you can all see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So apologies, I'm not yet set up Moodle, but I'll be setting it up after the lecture ends. So we had a brief discussion about this module, ICT Strategy and Policy Planning. And we had just a little bit of discussions last Friday when we met. I went offline unceremoniously. Surprising enough, I was in Kampala, but the network was the poorest there. So I think Fort Portal so far has been my most favorable place for internet connectivity. But we'd had a brief discussion about ICT strategy, where specifically this course unit is leading to. And today, let us begin with an introduction to what it is, what the module is all about. Now, we are very fortunate, or we're unfortunate or fortunate, we had the COVID pandemic. It was a harsh one, but it also brought about a different perspective about the way business is done. One of the primary things we can see, especially in the education sector, we now have full lectures going on online. An entire module is taught online. And if you've seen now lecturers, like for me in the academic sector, we see now lecturers taking a blended learning perspective to teaching and learning, which was something that was unheard of before. And we see that now with many businesses. Every time I visit Kampala, I have my two siblings there. They tell you find they've changed chairs. They tell you, oh, you see, there are these businesses online. You just go online, you identify a chair, the chairs you like, and they come and you purchase them by simply giving them your old chairs, and you top up a bit, and everything is done online. Everything now, you really see how ICT has changed the way we are doing things. ICT is no longer seen as something that helps you come up with a document. No, it's actually being used to achieve strategic objectives, business objectives. So with that in mind, therefore, also the ICT personnel, their perspectives must also change. Otherwise, ICT personnel, if you don't change, then it becomes very difficult for management to realize the significance of the ICT department. So the purpose of this module is to give you the ICT technocrats the skills to now align ICT towards business objectives. That is the primary purpose of this module. So for this particular module, we are going to focus our attention on ICT strategies. So even in this case in point, I would suggest that as of now, some of you may want to look at your organizations. Do you have an organizational strategic plan? Are there strategic objectives within your organization? And those of you who may have, you may want to bring, I may ask if you do identify that is. I would ask some of you if you could bring some of these strategic objectives, and we see how we could align ICT towards them. So one of the things we want to be able to do at the end of this module is to be able to develop, implement, and evaluate ICT strategies. So there are organizational strategies, then there's ICT strategies. The next is policy, ICT policy. We want to be able to develop ICT strategies. ICT policies. So normally ICT policies operationalize strategies, or they put them into motion. So that's maybe one of the things ICT policies will do. Third, we want to be able to develop change management plans. Why? ICT strategies are setting up objectives for the organization, for the department. And if it's setting up strategies for the organization, that means certain changes are going to happen. Yeah, certain changes are going to happen. So for those changes to happen, you must have a change management plan. Otherwise, you're going to have resistance towards these changes. It could be from the ICT department itself or from the other departments where changes are being made. So change management comes hand in hand with ICT strategy and policy planning. We should be able to apply best practice methods and matrices. One of the things that is important with ICT strategy is benchmarking. We should be able to, one of the things that before you make any changes, you benchmark with others, people who are doing something within the same industry as you and maybe doing it better. That you decide to go and say, let me go and see how they are doing this, so that we see how we can do the same thing or even better. Okay, so that comes from the thinking that there's no point in reinventing the wheel where someone else is able to do this. So with that, the expected learning outcomes is that one should be able to look at the current environment and clearly identify the changes in businesses today, to recognize the changes that are going on. Thirdly, some organizations run out of business, or individuals fail to cope up because they fail to recognize the trends in the current environment, the trends that are ongoing. Yeah, I gave you earlier an example. I just briefly told you about what's happening in the tea sector. The tea sector in Uganda is going through a crisis, and this crisis it had to happen. Eventually, it had to happen. Why? Because the Ugandan tea sector simply wasn't responding to the need for quality teas. The need for quality teas on the market. So if you're taking poor quality Ugandan teas to a Mombasa market where Rwanda is bringing top quality teas, Kenya is doing the same thing. And eventually the ones who are buying your bad tea now are no longer in the market. What happens? Uganda's tea will have a crisis. So that was failing to respond to the trends that are currently going on. No one wants to spend their hard-earned dollars on bad teas. Yeah. So now it's also the same thing in any business. We must be able to recognize the trends that are going on. So an ICT professional should be able to discuss the current trends, to articulate them, and to be able to respond to them, or come up with strategies to respond to these changing trends with competence. So that is one of the first things that would be expected of you as a professional. With that, with your ability to recognize those changing trends, you then should be able to discuss strategy and its significance. Because strategy is responding to the trends that are going on. That's what strategy is basically. You're responding to the current trends that the market is demonstrating or is demanding for. Okay? You should be able to discuss strategic management or planning. It isn't just about understanding strategy, but you should be able to also develop a strategy. Okay, understand the overall organizational strategy and then respond to it as ICT professionals by also developing your own strategic plan or management. One should be able to understand benchmarking, the significance of benchmarking, that is, looking at best practices within your sector. Those who are doing it well, who are those doing it well, and can we plan effectively that when we go there, we are actually identifying the things that we need they need to guide us when we come to make changes. We should be able to describe the steps for effective strategic planning. Basically, know the steps you need to go through. Performing a SWOT analysis. We shall discuss this further. And then in detail. Then lastly, discuss the role of the CIO. Now, most of you, I think the last discussion we had, when I asked you what is your position, some of you are heads of ICT. The head ICTs, in other places you find director ICT and so on and so forth. There is in a mature organization, you'll find what we call the CIO, the Chief Information Officer. And now, if an organization has this position, this is a mature organization that has recognized the significance of ICT within the organization. This person, this individual, sits at management level. And therefore, this person's primary job is to align ICT to the organization's strategic objectives. So we are moving beyond the techie in ICT. We are now looking at effective ICT management, aligning it to organizational strategies. In line with all of this, the CIO, or you who are training for these kinds of positions, you must understand legislation and regulation that currently exists that's going to influence strategy and policy making. What is the external environment? How does the external environment affect what you need to do? The point where you need to go. Yes, Andrew, you have a question or comment?
It's a question.
Yes, please.
About the CIO and the CTO.
Yes, please.
Because we're having an issue. Ministry of ICT is trying to redesignate all former ICT officers to IT.
Sorry, to IT?
And it also has information officers. IT. From ICT to IT. Because they are having communication officers and information officers.
Okay.
So in this particular category, if and the ICT people supposed to be under the CTO, Chief Technology Officer.
The Chief Technology Officer. Now, I think now for what the ministry is doing, it has separated the two roles, communication and technology. It has basically separated them. So if you have the CTO and then you have the CIO, I would imagine they are at the same level. These two would be at the same level. I think simply for government, they've simply split the two roles. I find that a bit, I don't know. Why would you separate technology from communication? Wouldn't the two go hand in hand and they one and the same? Unless they are looking at the technology as one side and the communication side as the other, the effect of technology as being separated, but more or less these two go hand in hand. I think for government, they've simply split the roles, but these two essentially go hand in hand. the government is big enough to do that, but in an organization, the two are usually combined, and therefore that's where the role of the CIO envelops both the technology side, the technology and the communication side. It envelops all, because ultimately both are dealing with information. Whether you're communicating information. The technology that is there, the IT that is there is basically communicating information, whether it is in a voice format or whatever data format. It's all being, everything is creating a channel for communication. So for me, I think it's what it's all semantics. They've just simply split the two roles, but I think for most organizations, they comfortably fall under the CIO. So yeah, for your question, the IT people would fall under CTO, and then the communication people would fall under, I imagine, the CIO. But essentially, the two can be merged for the sake of not duplicating tasks. For me, that's what I would imagine, Andrew. I don't know if I've answered your question.
I wanted to know if going forward, we take the CIO as a combination of CTO or ICT.
Yes, please. Yes, please. That is exactly what I'm saying. It's a combination.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the last learning outcome is to be able to understand the social, ethical, and political issues that are involved in information systems. I also take a module on science, technology, and ethics. I think this one will discuss it in detail at that time, but here we touch upon it as well. So we shall have, our teaching methods are mostly lectures, which are done weekly. We shall also have some forum discussions. We have some case study discussions. The coursework includes, here I'd said individual, but actually there are two group discussions. And then the final is a take-home individual. So any questions so far? You find also a study guide on Moodle. So by end of today, I should have sent you the enrollment key. But do we have any questions so far?
For clarity, you said final is a take-home.
Yes, please. It's a take-home. Okay, so shall we move on?
Yes, doctor, we can move on.
Okay. Okay. So the first thing we look at is what are information and communication technologies? What are they? And I think here also somehow we'll go back to Andrew's question, where we see the case of government, which has split the roles, but we realize it's basically one and the same thing. So one of the things we want to emphasize is that ICT is a strategic enabler. That is one of the primary things we want to drive home. We all know the basic definition of ICT. I mean, at this level, everyone knows the basic definition of ICT. We want to move beyond that, just that definition, and recognize ICT as a strategic enabler. Yeah. So one of the things we recognize is that ICT provides access to information through telecommunication, provides access to information. So interestingly, if you look at the history of ICT, there's always these the different ages we pass through. Yeah? The early man age, the iron age, industrialization. Right now, we say we're in the information age. And I think we are now seeing an even movement towards IA, artificial intelligence. So I don't know where that one comes in, but we'll see. And for me, I think a new age is emerging beyond just information, and rather more towards intelligence. We don't just want information, but we want intelligence given to us, or rather information that is key in making decisions, beyond just making decisions, but competitive decision making. This is where IA is coming in. So it's giving us, so we see ICT is giving us access to information, and IA is giving us more than just information itself. So that's one. Two, we see the component of ICT, what it is comprised of, the hardware and the software, the telecommunication, the internet, the networks, robotics, now IA, those components that are that make up ICT. Now, when you split them up, you see the first component are the users, the people. That's the very first component that we see as part and parcel of ICT. Now, these people supply and access data, okay? They supply and access data. We are now seeing that ICT is not just being used, but ICT is also helping to profile our clients, our potential clients. It's helping us to tailor services to our markets. So ICT is moving beyond just the people who supply, but we are now looking at individuals who are giving us business, individuals who we are targeting, and ICT is helping to tailor services towards our customers. So the people part goes beyond it. It's not just now, you're not just now a user, but we are also targeting our clients. So then we have the information part, what is output by ICT. So this is going beyond just information. Now, when we look at IA, it's the output now is becoming more intelligent, more refined, so to speak. Then we have the hardware, the physical components, the procedures. The procedures are also part of ICT. What determines what needs to be done and when. We have the software, then we have the data. Now, looking at our current trends, when we actually look at the components of ICT, they are actually becoming more and more refined and more mature in a sense of what our components are. If you look at them right now, what we are seeing right now, the image of what the ICT components are beginning to become more mature or more refined or reinvented, should I say. What are some of the ways that ICTs are changing the way we do things today? Well, we have now mobile solutions where we can now do our business anywhere at any time. You can have a meeting as you go. You can have your class while you're on the move. But however, in some cases, my older sister is taking a class in psychology and counseling, and she was telling me, one of her classmates, every time they're in class, he says, I'm on the move, and I'm on the move. And one lecturer said, you, my dear, respect the class, sit in one place. So, but yeah, so it can change. There are situations where it may not be so mobile as we wish, but now basically the way ICT is doing, we can now do things remotely. We can work remotely. We can do quite a number of things from home, from different locations, simply because of that connectivity that we have. Cloud computing is now I think is one thing that is being fully utilized. We had our annual general meeting at the local factory where I sit on the board, and one of the things that happens is usually at the AGM, some directors are retiring and either restanding or new ones standing, and they are voted. So when it was told to me that the previous AGM, when we had the last elections, the returning officer said they completed tallying the votes at 8 p.m. So I asked them why. They said, oh, you see, because we were entering the votes in 4 different workstations, so we had to reconcile at the end of the day, and it took time. I said, no, that's not possible. So we sat, I said, let me come. I said, the day before we have the AGM, let me come. And I came in and we sat down, and immediately they told me we have an Excel sheet where results are entered. And I said, then immediately I remembered Google Drive. And I said, why don't we put this Excel sheet on Google Drive and we share it with the tallying officers, and they enter votes. And we did that, and I think it was by about 4 p.m., results were in, they were read, and we were done. Simple cloud computing solution that saved us a lot of time for that small task. So cloud computing is one of the technologies that we now see that is playing a major part in for Google itself. It really supports the cloud computing has come in to support the education sector, where we have Google Apps for Education. They are providing they're zero services, basically. They're at zero cost. The services at zero cost, basically, for the education sector. I know there's also for the business side. I'm not sure what the costs are, but that also exists. So the third-party servers really come in to cut costs for small businesses that don't necessarily need to have ICT hubs set up for email and so on, also many other things. They've really come in to cut down on those costs. And they've come in now and they're leveling the playing field for all corporations to that you're now accessing the same services or using, you have all these functionalities at reduced costs. With IA in particular, we are seeing now extreme customer segmentation, where literally a system understands and targets a customer. A system will understand who you are, what you want, before you even state what you want. So IA is really coming in to provide that competitive edge for organizations, for companies. Connectivity is the other, giving easy access for customers, for clients, and so on and so forth. We are now seeing that connectivity is becoming more and more accessible for many. Well, for me, who is in the rural areas, I can say that it's not the easiest thing to believe. For instance, for me to come and teach, I have to use a particular section of the house. And at that particular time, I can't teach anywhere I feel like. I can't just do that. So even there are times when I need to set up for a class, it needs to be, I need to have charged the router in time and then go sit somewhere, do this, do that. This is very different like when I go to Kampala, where my siblings have 24-hour connectivity and you can log in at any time. For me, the router has to be charged, the weather has to be right, and so on and so forth. so connectivity is not as easy in rural areas. But however, it's of course a huge improvement. If I remember from the time of my late father when he was here, connectivity to the internet was next to impossible. But now things have improved. They could be better. Of course, there is a great deal of room for improvement, but it could be better. We're now seeing a decrease in costs, in ICT costs, be it for devices, connectivity, and so on and so forth. This has, I think, basically opening up of the markets, the ICT sector has really reduced costs, connectivity, devices, you name it. And then we're seeing an increase in functionality of devices and services that are out there. Really an increasing level for functionality. Social impact. The role of the social media platforms cannot be underplayed in building up a reputation of any business or even breaking it down. The social network, the social media platforms are a huge key point in any organization. So it is important for any organization to remember the significance of our social media platforms. So it is important for all ICT heads to understand the significance of these changes that are currently happening, to understand the different things that are currently going on and take advantage of these things. I have a niece, who graduated from Makerere. She did industrial art. Now, coupled with that creativity and also being social media savvy, you really see right when she got out of university, the jobs that are now available to her. Like creating content for the social media and so on and so forth. She's absolutely not short of jobs simply because of her creativity, but also coupling it with ICT. So this explains the significance of our social media platforms. Any questions so far? Do you have any questions so far?
No question, Doctor.
Okay. So our next point is to understand what is strategy. We must have a clear understanding of strategy in general for us to be able to move to ICT strategy. We must also understand why businesses need strategy. Why is it significant for them? Now, the key point here is that strategy has always existed. It has existed throughout history. And when we look at history, some people say strategy started from the army. Armies develop strategies in order to win wars. And if you look at any business, a business is basically struggling to survive. Definitely now for me, who is in the tea business here, I see it on a daily basis, seeing how factories are struggling at this time in a market that has simply fallen through. So you see the tea factories literally fighting for survival. So strategy essentially is a survival tactic. It's not just about remaining relevant, but it is a purpose, it's an issue of survival. Should you fail to see that the changes, the trends, then it's very likely that your organization can fall through. It can collapse very, very easily. The other day, I was chatting with a friend, and we were talking about the different farm the different projects you could start up right now in farming. And then we talked about sugarcane. And then he actually said, by the way, that's a good one because right now there's a high demand for sugar because like for example, in Uganda, we talked about how the baking, and now literally everyone is baking. There are so many baking companies that have come up. People are making cakes, bread, so on and so forth. And then I remember when I sat back, I remembered when I was in primary, there was this, I don't know if any of you ever saw it. There was one baking company called Hot Loaf. I remember it when I was very young in primary, Hot Loaf. And I was wondering, does Hot Loaf still exist? Those of you in Kampala, have you seen it? Because I don't remember, I'm rarely in Kampala nowadays. And when I am in Kampala, I'm usually lost trying to remember which road takes me where. But that company was there when I was very young. And it was the only one that was baking bread and any kind of cake. I don't know if it still exists. But anyway, I wondered, does it still exist? That I don't hear anyone talk about Hot Loaf. It was the only thing we knew at that time. But anyway, that's one of the things we talk about, survival. I mean, if everyone gains the skill of baking and you have access to the ingredients, why not? And therefore, for an organization needs to strive to survive in that kind of environment. Strategic management and planning. What is strategic management / planning? What is it exactly? Okay. Here we see art and science of formulating, implementing, and evaluating cross-functional decisions that enable an organization to achieve its objectives. So, first of all, a strategic plan is a game plan. A game plan, for instance, some of you may be football fanatics. I'm not so much of a fanatic, but I am a mild, no, sorry, I wouldn't say mild. It's like a family trend to support Arsenal because my late father loved Arsenal so much. So every time there's an Arsenal match, I watch. So you imagine the football coaches, they should have a game plan. If Arsenal, let's say, is going to go head to head with Man City, they must do all the last game I watched. I felt their game plan was attack until a goal enters the goalposts. Attack, and I think that was their game plan. Simply attack fight until a goal gets in, at least just one goal. There must be a game plan for a company. So that's what strategy is. A plan to achieve a certain objective. Yeah, a plan to achieve a specific objective. It is result-oriented. It requires some tough managerial choices, and you also have several alternatives. You have several alternatives which you could take, but you choose a specific alternative in order to enter into a market, in order you are targeting a particular market or a specific objective. That's what a strategic plan is. So in strategic management, we start with strategy formulation. Then we implement and eventually evaluate. Now in formulation, what does strategy formulation mean? In strategy essentially is saying, I am at this position now. I'm in position A. I would like to get to position D. So in order for me to get to position D, what am I saying? I'm saying position D is my vision. Yeah? Position D is it's where I want to be. And my mission is how I want to get there. My mission is I want to get to position D. So you start by to formulate a strategy. You start by developing your vision and mission statements. So each one of you, if I asked each one of you, what is your vision and mission statement of your organization, you should know. You as heads of ICT, you should know what the vision and mission statements are. Why? It gives you a hint of your organizational objectives. This gives you a hint of your organizational objectives. That's one. Two, we come to external opportunities and threats. So by identifying your external opportunities and threats, you're basically saying, I'm looking for the trends. What are the current trends? What are the new things happening within our market that we need to take advantage of? Then, what are the threats? What are the things that can easily hit us? Are we still operating in the dark ages? Do we have new entrants in the market? Are the customers asking for something which we are failing to provide? Listening to the customers, is there something they're asking for? Is there a need that you have not yet tapped into? So that is the second step we go through. The third step is looking at internally. Now we look at our strengths and weaknesses. We look within the organization. What is the strength and weakness? What are the strengths of the organization? What are the weaknesses? It could be in terms of your brand. It could be in terms of personnel. It could be in terms of governance, management, resources. Where are your weaknesses? Then you establish long-term objectives. Okay? You establish long-term objectives based on the external opportunities. The external opportunities, what opportunities what opportunities exist that you haven't taken advantage of? So you base those on, okay, can we develop an objective to take advantage of this opportunity that we haven't looked at? Is there a weakness within us that we need to strengthen in order to take advantage of those external opportunities? Can we leverage on some strengths in order to take advantage? Then you must have an objective to counteract the threats, the possible threats that may come in and undercut you. Basically take you out of existence as an institution, as an organization. You should also generate alternative strategies. Why things change along the way. We can't set up a strategy and something comes in and changes. Take an example. Who knew COVID would happen? I bet you COVID disorganized a number of businesses. So you must have alternative strategies in case the first primary strategies set up are curtailed somewhere along the way. You still should have an alternative strategy to ensure survival. Then you prioritize strategies and see which one do we pursue. which strategies do we start with first? That unless I achieve this strategy, the rest cannot be. This one is crucial. Now, also key point to note, when we develop strategies, an organization can develop a strategy during a time when things are very stable, when there's absolutely no need for change. But an organization says, I feel the need to lay out a plan for further growth. Let me not be comfortable. Then you can also develop strategies when things are in crisis. You can also develop a strategy when you are in crisis to ensure that you don't collapse. Yeah, so those are different environments, and there you pick strategies based on the current situation that you're going through. So strategic formulation will involve you making a decision on whether you want to enter a new business or not. Whether you might want to abandon a particular business. If you want to reallocate resources. If you want to expand operations or diversify. If you want to enter new markets. Now, I've taken an example for us now in the tea sector. We are now saying, can we look for other markets other than Mombasa, where we can find alternative funds, where our teas may not be judged compared to Rwandan teas from Rwanda and Burundi, which are totally black teas, high quality stuff? That is another thing. You can think of whether you can form mergers or joint ventures, yeah? Or it could be taking over, avoiding a hostile takeover. This is when you are trying to when you are coming up with a strategy to have, when it's a time of crisis. Do we have any questions so far on strategy formulation?
Yeah, yes, doctor. I wanted to inquire.
Yes, please.
On the mission, vision of a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm imagining formulating an ICT strategy. Do I look at the overall mission, vision of the maybe company, or each strategy is supposed to get its specific mission, vision of that particular strategy?
No, a mission and vision is okay. When your organization has a mission and vision. Now,
Yes.
when you are formulating, you and your department and together with the entire organization, when you are formulating a department mission and vision, it should be in line with the overall organizational mission and vision. So your mission and the ICT mission and vision should be aligned to the overall, organizational mission and vision. Then the strategic the ICT strategic objectives are aligned to the organizational mission and vision statements. So, sorry, not mission and vision, sorry. They're aligned to the organization's strategic objectives. So take an example. I gave you the example of NSSF. I don't know if you were there in the first lecture. NSSF reached when they were formulating, I think, their strategic objectives, and they said overall one of their strategic objectives, for example, was to say that to remit funds. Let's say if I am an NSSF member, if I apply for my funds, the member, I should receive my funds, let's say, within X amount of time for application. So now they'd come to ICT and say, how can you ICT support this organization to achieve this strategic objective? Meaning the ICT department must develop a strategic objective that supports that objective. Do you get what I'm saying, Isaac?
I get you, doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's come to strategy implementation. So here, once we have formulated our strategy, we need to implement it. Yeah. So a farm usually has annual objectives. You can have your strategic objectives, which you may decide to split into annual objectives to say that each year, in order to achieve this overall objective, let me first digress just a bit. A strategic objective has a lifespan. Sorry, a strategic plan has a lifespan. So some people will create a strategic objective for 3 years, for 5 years, 10 years, something like that. And for those which are long term, one may decide to split it so that you have piecemeals annually, that once I achieve this first objective, then the second and third, it will allow me achieve this overall general objective. So you may establish annual objectives. And once you establish those, you then formulate policies to ensure that the activities under the strategic objective are implemented, are operationalized. Yeah. 2, you motivate employees who are actually who are actually participating in these implemented policies. You have situations where the policy strategies and policies are formulated, and then you have what we call enforcement. Enforcement may sound aggressive, but enforcement could include trainings, where you train employees on how to operationalize these strategies. You have evaluation to see if people are actually implementing them. You have audits, where you audit departments, which are departments, to see if these policies, strategies, and policies are done, and so on and so forth. And where there is a failure, when you evaluate, you have a new strategy to ensure that this thing is actually implemented. So the strategy implementation, that this motivation part includes all of this. Then you also have the allocation of resources to ensure that the formulated strategies are actually executed, to ensure that the changes you've made or the changes you require to see are actually being seen. Strategy evaluation. So this is where, after implementation, we evaluate at different stages to see that there's actually a change in performance of the different departments and employees, that the strategies we have implemented have actually been followed through at organizational level, at department level, at business unit level, and even at individual level. Now, strategic management, one of the things we must understand about strategic management, management must have an intuition or a kind of foresight into what is happening. Management should have an idea of the changes that are happening within the market. They should have some kind of intuition. There is a story told about Bill Gates, how he started Microsoft. I understand he was working for IBM. IBM, he was a software developer, and he said that there was a colleague who started developing Windows, then abandoned it, and then Bill Gates started it up. And they said the story was that his supervisor kept finding him working on this thing. and got angry. And at a certain point, they just wanted to fire him, but they couldn't fire him. So they kind of wanted to just let him go without too much fuss. And I understand Bill Gates asked them to sign an agreement that, okay, I'm leaving, but once this Microsoft, this Windows thing takes off, you as IBM will not claim any part to it. And these guys signed. They went ahead and signed. And Bill Gates, of course, now we know what happened. Yeah, we all know, we all see the fruit of Microsoft Windows, what it has done for him as an individual and for the world. But that was intuition on his part. At that time, it was inconceivable that personal computers could exist. It was inconceivable at that time. Now, strategic management is the ability for management to see what has not yet happened, what is likely to happen, that new things that are likely to come up, the new markets that could emerge, the new customers that could emerge, the new needs and wants. So that's what strategic management basically is. So the intuition is useful for decision making, especially in a time of uncertainty. Why? Because it's not necessarily spelled out that this is going to happen, but it does actually happen. Yeah, something actually does happen. It was inconceivable at a certain time that we could do many things online, that we could teach online, that teaching and learning could happen online. I remember when I was head ICT UMU, when we started when we started setting up the Moodle platform, we were barely getting any response from staff members. Barely any response. We set it up, we were trying to tell people this is what is happening, but nothing, there was no bite whatsoever. I remember I was the first to use Moodle. I was going to teach a class at Rubaga. And I remember when I first used it, at that time, the Rubaga, I think it should, I don't know what the situation is now, but in my time, getting a projector at Rubaga, the weekend, Friday, Saturday classes was next to impossible. If you didn't get there in time, if you didn't book in time, forget about it. But I remember when I started using Moodle, how easy it made my life. I would upload the lecture slides in time, upload them on Moodle. While I'm teaching, the students download them and I start teaching. And I reached a point, I even stopped carrying my laptop over the weekend. So I would either come with a tablet or my smartphone and I start teaching. And you can imagine for me as a lecturer, it was such a relief. You know, you've traveled from Nkozi Friday evening, then you have to travel home to my home in Kampala with my siblings. And you know that Kampala jam, you're not picking a taxi, you're using a boda with a laptop bag and you know, all that stuff. I remember what a relief Moodle did for me. So we tried selling it, but even still there were no bites. Then we had a project. I forget the name of the project. It was started by some lecturers. Basically, it was teaching about new ways of teaching students who are coming out into the real world. So it was talking about using blended methods of teaching and learning, using ICT. So here were lecturers now teaching and motivating other lecturers on using ICT. And then right after that, lo and behold, what happens? COVID breaks in. Now, I imagine if we didn't have Moodle set up at that time, what would have happened? But it really came in at a time when I remember as ICT, we were talking about strategy and we were saying ICT goes hand in hand with teaching and learning. Let's set it up. And in the end, it became a savior by the time COVID came in. So it is having that ability to see beyond, to make a decision, even if at a certain time it looks like it's unnecessary, it's not something that one should even be bothered about. Right now, I give you the context in which I'm in farming. We have a tea factory here. ICT is seen as the very last option, completely unnecessary. And when at the board level, I try to bring it up, you really see it's not seen as a priority. What is seen as a priority, we need to make money, we need to make money. But at a certain point in time, ICT is going to be key. So it's one point that you keep pushing forward because it becomes a real strategic enabler. So when we are thinking of strategy, there are 4 points where generally in strategy, organizations want to, the lines along which they want to think of. 1, organizations want strategies that may decide to pick a strategy that is looking at cost leadership. So here, I'll give you the example of the tea sector, where I am currently in. In East Africa, the countries that produce tea are Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi. Now, Rwanda is, of course, a very small country with very limited agricultural areas. The land is limited. But what has Rwanda done? Rwanda has focused on quality, to the point that Rwandan teas, when they go to the Kenyan market, they even beat Kenyan teas. So their volumes are small, but they fetch the highest price on the market because of quality of product. Now, you come to Uganda, which has large areas for planting, but Uganda has focused on poor quality teas, focusing on volumes. At a certain point, it helped, but right now it has brought us a serious crisis. So here in cost leadership, Uganda has failed on that part. Yeah, especially because the buyers in the market at Mombasa have changed. Those who are ready to buy the poor quality teas are no longer there. So organizations can decide to have a strategy on cost leadership. Let me just give another example. You have universities which attract students based on tuition fees. You offer the lowest school fees in the market. Others focus on history. Take an example. Many will go to Makerere University because it's a historical institution. It is the largest. It has the largest number of professors and the largest number of research projects, and so on and so forth. Others will focus on differentiation. So you may find an example of universities like UMU and UCU, which will differentiate themselves based on religion. Religious values are the foundation of these institutions. UCU, IU, UMU. Religious values are what they base the quality of their institutions. There are others which focus on a particular service or product. So again, if I give an example of universities, Bara University focuses on the fact that it's a science university, science-based or science-focused. Yeah. So depending on the university, then there are those which will focus on alliances. So here the best example I can give you is when you look at secondary schools that will partner with institutions or alliances which provide an international perspective, where they say they give you something like a Cambridge curriculum or something like that. So that alliance gives them a competitive advantage or a marketing competitive advantage. So strategies normally focus on these 4 areas. Yeah, you can phrase them in different ways, but that's essentially what strategy focuses on. Here are some key terms we will find in strategic management. One is the vision statement. What do we want to become? Right now, this is who I am, but who do I want to be in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? Who do I want to become? So you find that statement. So here's an example of UMU's vision statement. I don't know if it has changed. It may have, but this is to be a university that is nationally and internationally recognized for excellence in teaching, learning, research, and advancement of knowledge and community engagement. Nationally and internationally recognized for excellence. Yeah, national and international. So UMU may be saying, right now, I'm not yet recognized for that, but I want to be. So all its strategic objectives must be leading towards that. Teaching, learning, and research. How can we bring about excellence in these 3 areas or 4 areas, including community engagement? Yeah. So this is considered the first step in strategic planning, formulation of your vision statement. Mission statements. So these are enduring statements that they distinguish one business from others. To say this is who we are, this is what our business is, different from others. So if you look at UMU's mission statement, how does it differentiate itself from others? It provides higher quality education for the betterment of society guided by ethical values. So that's where UMU is distinguished from others. And you can look at other organizations. Now, here I would ask you to please go and look at your different organizations. And in the next class, we just have a discussion on that. Okay? The third term is external opportunities and threats. So most of these we have already discussed a little bit here and there, but we can just expound on them slightly here. So we already know what the external opportunities and threats are. Okay? So here the organization is looking at what exists, what is the environment surrounding the organization, what are the new opportunities that we can identify, that we can use, we can take advantage of, things that we have noted, market niches that we have not yet touched on. What are the current competitive trends? Okay? So and so on and so forth. So when we look at some of the opportunities or threats we can think of, in ICT, we can think of computer hacking. Then you have intense price competition, where you have unemployment, rising interest rates, and so on and so forth. So you look at the current environment that you currently exist in. So one of the threats, for example, that we see in the current environment is the high cost of living that we are currently experiencing. You have high fuel costs, high tariff costs, and so on and so forth. So all of these are playing a part. Now, for example, first in the tea sector, the buyers have changed. Now that's a threat for us. It's an opportunity. On one hand, it's a threat on the other. Internal strengths and weaknesses. So here, the organization is looking at itself internally to see where are its strengths and weaknesses. So here, the organization, as it's formulating its objectives, the organization would say, you would be looking at specific results that the organization seeks to achieve. So we at this point, if we've looked at the external environment and the internal environment, we are now saying we want to be able to be like this, to achieve this, to achieve A, B, C, D, something we haven't achieved yet. These objectives become a long-term, meaning they are more than 1 year. They should be challenging, meaning that this is something we are not yet at right now, and we need to get there. Then they should be measurable. We should be able to measure after a particular point in time if we have made any progress towards. They should be consistent, reasonable, and clear. So the strategies, they are the means by which long-term objectives will be achieved. They may include geographical expansion, diversification, acquisition of product, market penetration, retrenchment, whatever it is. Those strategies are the means by which you achieve your objectives. These strategic objectives can be split into annual objectives. So these are smaller milestones or piecemeals, milestones with which an organization can strive to achieve in order to achieve the long-term goals. So they make them more achievable and they allow for evaluation. So that the annual objectives allow for evaluation. Policies. So they are the means by which the annual objectives are achieved. So they operationalize our annual objectives. There are also guidelines and rules and procedures meant to support achieving your strategic objectives. They also guide in decision making daily. So here we have a generic strategic model which can help guide on development of strategic plans and objectives. We start with the questions of where are we now? Where do we want to go? How do we want to get there? Here we have a comprehensive strategic model. Okay. First and foremost, I want to ask, before I get into this, how many of you are still attentive now? I may be talking and fatigue has come in and you may not be following anymore.
We are there.
You're still available? Sorry? Hello?
Yes,
Sorry, Andrew?
Saying we are attentive.
You're attentive, eh?
Isaac has a problem, I think, with the network.
With the network,
Some
okay.
going on.
Okay, so what I would suggest, let's go through this model and then let's call it a break for today after this model so that the groups that follow afterwards may not be completely lost. So let us look at this model. And basically, this model simply summarizes everything that we have discussed so far. We start with developing the mission and vision statements. Yeah. Now, at this time, we perform, in formulating these, we concurrently perform an audit, external audit and internal audit. What is the purpose of performing the external audit and internal audit? This is where we identify the external part, we identify the opportunities and threats. in the internal audit, we identify our strengths and weaknesses. Based on these two audits and our formulated vision and mission statement, we then establish long-term objectives that we must hit maybe in 5 years' time, 3 years' time, 5 years' time, depending on the lifespan of your strategic plan. We then generate, evaluate, and select strategies. So what strategies are going to help us achieve these long-term objectives? Once we have formulated these, we implement them. We implement these strategic objectives. So this goes in hand with change management as well. So these implementations are done in the different departments of the organization. Because remember, these are organizational strategic. It covers the entire organization. So once we implement them within the department, we carry out measurement or evaluation or performance. We evaluate the performance of these strategies. Are they being followed through? Are we seeing new results? Results that may drive us towards our long-term strategy, our long-term objectives. So this process is iterative. It takes us back. The evaluation process may reveal that maybe within a particular department or in some departments, maybe not all strategies are being followed through the way they were supposed to. Maybe change has not been completely done. We may come back to reevaluate our strategies if they are workable or not, or really to come back to the selected strategies themselves. So this evaluation process takes us back to each step to see if there's a gap where we may need to fill in. So basically, this model describes in essence what we've been talking about throughout on strategic management. So with that, we have questions. We've had, I think, a total of 2 hours straight of lectures, of talking, and you listening.
Yes, Doctor, I have a question.
Yes, please.
First of all, I want to appreciate you for the amazing lecture. There is a lot to learn. It's really very intriguing and very interesting. Though I wanted you to throw some more light in the process of change management.
Yes.
What should be the key things? For example, if I'm a head ICT in an institution, and in that process, what are the key things I need to focus on in the process of change management? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. That's a good question. We are going to have an entire session on change management. So that's just a heads up. But essentially, in change management, you'd have identified the things that need to be changed. Who is going to be affected? And then you also have agents of change. People who are like the team leaders who are going to lead change within a particular department. So take an example at UMO, when we were changing, when we were moving to online, we had lecturers who led that change. It wasn't ICT, it was lecturers leading other lecturers into that transition. So for example, when a lecturer was talking enthusiastically about, how he set up an online platform, this is my online platform, a fellow lecturer saw it was doable. As opposed to if it was the head ICT who was doing it. Because then if it was the head ICT, they are saying, but this person is already tech savvy. I mean, for him, it's very easy. But if it was a fellow lecturer showing it, when they were really showing them, this is how doable it is. And it actually makes your work easier. It gives you a better profile and so on and so forth. So there are different things we shall go through where you actually set up a plan, you identify areas where the change is going to happen, and you actually have change agents who drive the different changes in the different departments. I hope I've answered your question.
Very well, Doctor. Thank you.
You're most welcome. So we shall have an entire session on that. I would suggest we stop here. Even for me, the lecturer, I'm a bit tired because I think we've had 2 hours.
Question.
Yes, Andrew.
Thank you very much for the lecture. I wanted to inquire, does strategy, you first create a strategy before making policies?
Yes. Now, one, the organization must have a strategy itself, the overall organization. So what we are looking at right now is a generic strategy for an entire organization. So this is generally management-led. Board members would drive it, but it is management-led, and it involves every single member of the organization, the different department heads, and so on and so forth. So they would start this strategy. Then different policies are set up. Now, once the overall organization is set up, a strategic plan is set up, then the ICT department also develops its strategic plan. In other words, Andrew, as the organization is developing its strategy, the ICT department develops its strategy alongside it. Okay? So now the overall organization says we need to achieve ABCD goals. The marketing department must have its own strategic plan, which helps the overall organization achieve plan ABCD. The ICT department also then develop its own to help the organization achieve a strategic plan, a strategic objective ABCD. So it's done concurrently. In other cases, you find the organization has developed its own, and then the ICT develops its alongside it. Then once the strategy is developed, then the policy is developed. So the policy follows the strategy. I hope I've answered your question, Andrew.
Yeah, because I wanted to inquire if you develop a strategic plan, which most organizations have,
yes,
they start creating policies.
Yes.
So if the strategy changes, also the policies have to change.
Yes.
Is that how it works?
Yes, they are living documents. Yeah, basically, so to speak, the strategy and policies are living documents. If something changes in the strategy, definitely the policy also has to change. Take an example. If UMU had a policy on sitting exams, on sitting physical exams being done in a physical place, once COVID came in, some of those policies had to change. Don't you think so? Yeah, when we had online teaching and learning, some policies had to change along the way. On even other cases, some new policies had to come in. So essentially, that's why you find they actually say that we have living documents. These are living documents. I hope I've answered your question.
I have one last question.
Yes, please.
According to your experience, what can ICT need in the organization? Like ICT champion, which doesn't need to, which can direct management, or which can assist management?
Sorry, can you? I have not got the question properly. Could you repeat it, please? What can ICT?
I was saying, yes. What can ICT do? Because we keep on doing so many things, audits, what and what. But according to your experience, what can an ICT head pick up and try to do, which can help the organization, but it won't be shut down by the management?
What can it do? Now, How do I answer that question? If you look at the context of many organizations, not all organizations, but some organizations have really matured in perspective where they actually have a CIO, a chief information officer, who sits at management level. Some organizations do have that. Others, not necessarily the case. Now, for me, one of the things I've seen is if you have management that is fully aware of the significance of strategy. If you have an organization that has mature management that understands strategy in its fullest sense, then automatically they will pull ICT onto the management level, that they know ICT has a part to play automatically. I gave you the example of NSSF has reached that level where they have a CIO and ICT is asked that, how can you come in to support us? By the time management raises that demand or that directive, it means management is fully aware of the significance of ICT. That is one. Now you have other contexts where management is not aware of the significance of ICT. Yeah. So in that case, what does ICT do? ICT can still go ahead, as long as you head ICT, go ahead and formulate your strategy and policy and present it to management. And present it in a way that you show it is applicable. Give it timelines. Give each strategic objective a timeline. And when you are formulating a strategic plan, you actually pinpoint where funds are going to come from, who is going to be responsible, and where funds will come from. Now, once you do that, once management sees where funds are coming from, because, Andrew, I'm aware one of the things management is always scared about is where are funds going to come from? Okay? Where will funds come from? But if the strategic plan indicates where the funds will come from, especially if it is achievable, if these funds can actually be gotten or their funds are available, they are simply redirected into another place, then you can buy management into it. But it is formulating these strategies together with management and then selling it. And then you as ICT begin to implement them in piecemeal. Once management sees the results, that because we've implemented this, we've seen an improvement in performance, then they can buy it in. It's not an easy journey, Andrew. I will not lie to you that it is something that can be bought very, very easily. Sometimes it requires you to push for something, to push and push and push before somebody accepts. But with time, it happens. As long as management sees an improvement in performance. That is the key point. Andrew, I don't know if I've answered your question. I don't have a clear-cut answer, but it's being strategic, should I say in quotes. I don't know if I've answered your question, Andrew. Hello?
Hello, Doctor.
Yes, I don't know if you are saying, I don't know if I've given you some kind of an answer.
Yes, sorry, I think it was the network. Saying,
yeah.
Thank you very much. It has highlighted a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have any other question, comment? Hello?
No, Doctor.
Okay, so